Welcome to the UTG at Work podcast. I'm Deacon Mike Houghton. I am the Executive Director of an apostolate called UTG at Work. Our mission is to help women and men joyfully live their faith and witness to Christ in the gospel in the workplace. I'm happy to be with you as we explore the Sunday gospel in ways that help people who work. You can find this podcast as well as helpful articles, videos, and other materials on our website, which is utgatwork.org. You can also subscribe to this podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting sites. This weekend we celebrate the 13th Sunday in Ordinary Time, and our gospel is a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed close to the sea. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came forward. Seeing him, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come lay your hands on her that she may get well and live." He went off with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed upon him. There was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. She had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors and spent all she had. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "If I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured." Immediately her flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Jesus, aware at once that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who has touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to Jesus, "You see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction." While he was still speaking, people from the synagogue official's house arrived and said, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" Disregarding the message it was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, he caught sight of the commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and said to them, "Why this commotion and weeping? This child is not dead, but asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took along the child's father and mother and those who were with him and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, arose immediately and walked around. At that they were utterly astounded. He gave strict orders that no one should know this and that she should be given something to eat. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. A few weeks back I mentioned that Mark uses a unique writing style with sandwiches, as they're called, where he covers one aspect of Jesus' ministry in the 2 pieces of bread and the other aspect in the meat that's in the middle. Today's Gospel is another example of a sandwich from Mark. He starts off with a story about Jairus and his deathly ill daughter. But before he concludes that story, he inserts another story about the woman with a hemorrhage of 12 years. In fact, the church actually offers 2 options for today's Gospel, the one that I've chosen here, and another which completely removes the story of the woman with the hemorrhage so that the Gospel is solely about Jairus and his daughter. So at some masses this weekend, you may not hear the whole sandwich, but rather just the bread. Now, the curing of Jairus' daughter is a wonderful story, and we could go on for some time talking about how Jesus proves by this that he's God by raising her from the dead. We can talk about how children were thought to be of little value in Jesus' time, but that he loved and cared for them dearly. But I'm going to focus my comments on the woman with the hemorrhage. At the start of this gospel, we read that Jesus got off the boat and a large crowd gathered around him. Picture the scene, if you will, with people trying to get close to him, either due to faith or just plain curiosity. You can imagine that Jesus was being bumped and squeezed and pushed around by many people as he tried to work his way through the crowd. But then came the woman who had faith that if she just touched his clothes, she would be cured. And of course, she was cured for doing so. It's an amazing story. She showed great faith and great courage. But what's most interesting is Jesus' response when he says, "Who touched me?" The reality is that dozens, if not hundreds of people came into contact with him. So why would he ask that question? He knew that healing power had gone out from him. But if the woman was cured simply by contacting him, then why wasn't everyone in the crowd who contacted him that day cured of all of their illnesses? The answer to that question is that for all the people who came into contact with him, only one in that crowd actually touched him. You see, there's a substantial difference between contacting Jesus and touching him in faith, and that difference is worth contemplating. All the others in the crowd merely contacted him. Perhaps they came to see if he would perform a miracle. Perhaps they came to see if he would be arrested. Perhaps they came just because a crowd was gathering and they were curious about what was going on. But not her. She wanted to do more than just contact him. She wanted to touch him in faith because she knew that he was someone special and that he could heal her. So let's look at this miracle from two different perspectives. The first is from our own personal perspective. When you meet the Lord in prayer, when you meet him in the Eucharist, are you contacting him or are you touching him? I know that for me, far too often I find myself only contacting him. Have you ever recited a prayer, say for example the Our Father, and been unsure if you said it correctly or not when you were done? Have you ever started your morning or bedtime prayers and found yourself going through the motions and reciting them but thinking about something else? And what about when you receive the Eucharist? Are you simply receiving it and moving on as though it were a snack? Well, I've done all these things. And when I do, I'm coming in contact with the Lord and not touching him in faith. Now, I realize that we all lose focus sometimes. We will all occasionally pray without heart. We will all occasionally receive the Eucharist without giving it due reverence and awe. Don't feel bad if you do this once in a while as well. It's part of the human condition. What's important is that when you do lose focus, you stop and remind yourself that this isn't a game, and it's not simply a way to check the box for faith on the list of things to do today. No, when we attempt to encounter the Lord, we need to do our best to focus on it and to do it with heart. But there's a second way of looking at this miracle, and that's from the perspective of others who approach you, including your coworkers. Did anyone in the crowd that was with Jesus that day realize that the woman who was seeking him was afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years? That she had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors? That she had spent all that she had? That all of this only made her worse? Probably not. She was alone with her pain and suffering, hoping beyond hope that Jesus would make her better. Now think about all of your co-workers. How many of them are suffering? How many of them are going through painful relationships or divorces, giving all they had to care for sick parents, dealing with grief over a lost loved one, or something else? The answer is that quite a few of them are. When we come to work, we put on a mask of anonymity that allows us to hide our real emotions and not let anyone know that we're hurting inside. Now, to some extent, we need this. We can't have everyone wearing their heart on their sleeve every minute of the day while they're at work. But we take it too far when we're truly in need of help, but won't let anyone know. I remember some years ago, we had a cheery engineer on our team who was by all accounts living the American dream. She was young and pretty, newly married, and seemingly had a bright future. And then, one morning, we found out that she had been murdered by her husband. She wore the mask quite well. No one had a clue. Some of your coworkers want to wear the mask of anonymity. They don't want anyone at work getting involved in their personal problems. They keep their cards close to the vest. You may never be able to help them. But some, and I would argue many, would welcome the chance to touch someone who could help them heal. They may feel uncomfortable reaching out because it's not typical to do so at work, but they're hurting inside and looking for help. They see coworkers all around them, and they want to cry out in pain for someone to help, but they fear that it's not acceptable for them to do so. You can be that someone to whom they turn. You can be the coworker who truly cares about them. You can bring Jesus to them. You won't be able to cure their problems with just a touch of your garment, but you can introduce them to the Lord so that they can touch his garment. And you do that by living your faith at work so that others know that there's something special about you, so that they know that you have an understanding of things that goes beyond the secular. When you do, people who are hurting will come to you so that they can have some of what you have, and so that they can come to know the healing presence of the Lord. Thus, I offer two things for your consideration as we contemplate today's gospel. First, how do you approach the Lord in prayer and in the Eucharist? As one who comes in contact with him, or as one who touches him in faith? And second, how willing are you to witness to your faith at work so that co-workers who are hurting can come to you and touch your garment? As we enter into the joy of summer, may we all take a few peaceful moments to sit in the beauty of the season and to contemplate how we can better touch the Lord in our encounters and to be Christ to others who desperately need him. Thanks for joining me for this week's UTG at Work podcast. I look forward to meeting again next week. In the meantime, I encourage you to boldly live your faith in the workplace in the week ahead. I'll pray for your success, and I ask that you pray for the success of this UTG at Work apostolate. If you want to learn more about us, please visit utgatwork.org. Now go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life.